If you like retro games, if you're on the fence about whether or not you want a Steam Deck, or if you have a Steam Deck and you're just not using it as much as you expected to, maybe this is going to be something that'll get you going on it. Retro games on the Steam Deck 2023, good, bad, indifferent, we'll cover it all. Let's go. We'll start with the Neo Geo, the Art of Fighting, which is one of my favorite of all time. And as you see on the screen here, it's coming up. It's emulated very well. The graphics for the Neo Geo at that time, both in the arcade and at home, were groundbreaking. This is 1991, I want to say. I'll correct myself down here if I'm wrong. But as you see, animations are good. I'm not that good at it on the Steam Deck. That's one thing. Controls for this one are a little tough. I have hooked up an arcade stick, an actual Neo Geo X arcade stick to this Steam Deck, and it does work a lot better, but that kind of defeats the purpose what I'm arguing for here. The portability is what I'm really talking about. You can use this as a base station too and put this on a big screen and play games that way. I could use this to replace my Steam Link if I wanted to, but as you see, it emulates perfectly. It plays perfectly. I don't have the sound going here, but the sound is perfect as well. Most emulators do a good job with this. What I like about the Steam Deck is the larger screen. I have an Amber Neck that I use sometimes. It's got a much smaller screen. That still works great. The Neo Geo X itself is both a console and a portable, and that's got a slightly bigger screen than the Amber Neck, but still small, so I like the space here. Moving to one of my favorite games on the Neo Geo, that would be Metal Slug 3. An excellent game. I think it's where they perfected most of the Metal Slug formula. I love the zombie part of it too, and other parts as well. And as you see here again, plays perfectly. No slowdowns. No would you expect there to be on something that's powerful. But buttons on this are a little bit easier than the buttons for Art of Fighting. Art of Fighting, those arcade buttons were really important, location-wise, for something so fast. Even though this is a pretty fast shoot 'em up, it's just easier to play with the, I could play with an Xbox controller. I remember playing this in the arcade when it came out. I remember playing it on my 360. I vaguely remember playing it on MAME when they finally got Neo Geo support, but that was sketchy at best. And of course, I play it now. And playing it now brings back all those memories. And this is a game that I never really played in the arcade, and I don't have much nostalgia for, but I really started to like when I played it on both my Neo Geo X and then through emulation, and that is The Last Blade, which I think is an excellent fighting game. It takes a bit of Samurai Showdown and modernizes it a bit, in my opinion. It's a little faster, like the moves better. The animation is spot on good, and it looks great on this device too. So another one that I think plays well, looks good, and the buttons on this one for a fighting game actually worked fairly well for me. Although with this one I win, so maybe I'm not that bad. Still looks good, plays well. All the essentials are here, and the beauty of it is fire it up and you're ready to go. And if you go on vacation, if you travel to work on public transport, this just works right away. To move things further into the future a little bit, I figured I'd go into the Dreamcast, one of the hardest consoles to emulate on some of the other hardware, like the Ambernex hardware. Usually struggles with that. I get a lot of choppiness. I tried to play Ready to Rumble and some others. It just didn't work. San Francisco Rush here just looks fantastic. Plays well, speed, graphics. I mean, these graphics are dated kind of for the time, and controls a little off here, as you'll see. I'm not that sloppy when I drive. I've always had an issue with controllers and driving games. I like the steering wheels better, but for the home use, it's kind of tough to do that. I remember this game on the Dreamcast in the arcade, the sequel to San Francisco Rush 2049, this is. I love the updates, love the sound, love the speed of the game, and I love the shortcuts. And of course, the emulation takes all that into play. And the Steam Deck, I'll say the Steam Deck control isn't any worse than what the Dreamcast controller was. I remember when I got my Dreamcast, I was all excited to play these type of games, and it took me a little while to adapt, going from the steering wheel to the Dreamcast controller. I think the Steam Deck does an excellent job of emulating the controller. Use a trigger for acceleration, and that's a big pet peeve of mine. I don't know why I hate hitting a button to accelerate and brake. I like having the two triggers. Almost feels like paddle shifters in a car. I know that's a stretch, but I'll make that stretch. That's fine. I just think it does an excellent job all around. Figured another one that's really tough to emulate, that has always been frustrating for me, is the Nintendo 64. Obviously, I could go to Mario 64. I decided to pick something obscure, Gex, for the 64. I didn't think it was a great game, but since it's very similar platform style to Mario 64, I thought it would be good to see how well the Steam Deck handles this. And again, smooth like butter. Everything moves very well. Again, another controller that can be tricky, the Nintendo 64 controller. This, you need to take a little bit of time to go through this tutorial that I'm showing to just see how the controls work. And they do end up working well. Once you get used to it, I think you'll find it'll play as expected. What you get with the Steam Deck and with Retro Deck, and depending on how many ROMs you want to download, all you need is an SD card dedicated to your Retro Deck library. That's it. And they pop in and out really easy. That's one great thing about this device. It's down the bottom here where you have the slot, and you just get a 64 gigabyte card, and you can load up everything on it. I have every possible system and every possible ROM that I could get just to test out. It uses RetroArch as its base, and although I've had many problems with RetroArch, this iteration of it just seems to work much better. It takes in all the different emulators, puts them in one place, all the ROMs go into one place, BIOS all in one place. Pretty simple. If you don't know emulators, there will be a little bit of a learning curve, but it's one of those things that's not punishing. If you have a Steam Deck, or if you're thinking about getting a Steam Deck and you need something to push you over the edge, I do think that the emulating ability of this device certainly will do that for you. Imagine you've got every NES, every SNES, Genesis, PS3, PS2, PS1. All of them play well. All of them are enjoyable. For the purists, you're going to have a bit of a problem with controls on a lot of these. The more modern you get, the easier it is. Although the D-pad, I find the D-pad on the Steam Deck to be very useful. And when you're playing something like an NES game, I think it works excellently. Even Super NES is fine. Genesis, I think, works out pretty well too. The 6 buttons get a little tricky sometimes because they're not intuitive as they were on the original controller. If you're a stickler, there are USB versions of the old controllers that you can attach to the Steam Deck, or you can get adapters for the original controllers to work with USB. Either way is fine. And I found all of those to be an interesting way to do it. I did that actually with my TurboGrafx. I was able to use a TurboGrafx controller on my Steam Deck. Give credit to the people that made Retro Deck. I think that they're the ones that really made this happen. And give credit to Valve for making this platform as open as possible, because people are doing wonderful things with it. This is not a go out and buy a Steam Deck video. This is, if you're thinking about buying it and you need the nudge, here's your nudge. If you have it and it's collecting a little more dust than you wanted it to, or you're just not thrilled with what you're doing with it, retrogaming is an awesome option. I'd love to know what you think about it. Please put that down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm trying to come up with a bunch of different types of videos here. I'd love to hear what people want to see, what I can do better, what I can do worse, if you want to say that. Anyway, keep gaming.